Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Wednesday edition of the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Dan Labbe here with Mary Kay Cabot and Ashley Bastock. We've got a few things that we want to get to here today on the pod. We're going to look at some of the core player posts that we've been working on, but I want to start here. We saw our list of Defensive Player of the Year candidates that came out today. Myles Garrett is not on the list. It is Micah Parsons, it is Nick Bosa, and it is Chris Jones of the Kansas City Chiefs. So Myles Garrett, not a finalist for the Defensive Player of the Year award. I'm sure he got a fair amount of votes. I'm sure if they expanded this out to top 5, he's probably on that list, but not enough to be one of the finalists. Mary Kay, I guess just what was your reaction here? Is it like egregious that he's not a finalist, or can you look at this list of finalists and say, okay, I guess I understand why he wasn't ahead of these 3 players?
You know what? I actually think it is kind of egregious. I'm writing about this right now, and I've been working on, going over statistics and comparing him to the other players and trying to sort of sort through this. Last year, if you recall, he didn't get any votes. There are 50 voters, and he didn't get any. Now, a little bit more understandable, I think, last year, because TJ Watt got 42 votes out of the 50. And TJ Watt deserved 42 votes out of 50. But there is a world in which, for the second straight year, Myles might not have gotten much love or attention for this award. And I do think that this year, based on the other players, that he deserved to be right in there and at least one of the 3 finalists. Maybe he knocks out Chris Jones. That's probably the one that I would say, okay, you deserve to be in there, perhaps ahead of Chris Jones. And I don't have, again, I'm writing about this today. I don't have all my numbers right in front of me right now, but he was, I think, tied in as the player most double teamed. He was tied with Aiden Hutchinson for that, according to ESPN stats and info. And he was first or second in pass rush win rate. Say that fast 3 times. And he was tied for second in the NFL with 16 sacks. He was right up there with all of his pressures. And Pro Football Focus has him ranked as the number 1 edge rusher in the NFL. So if you put all those stats together, I don't see any reason why Myles Garrett should not be a finalist for NFL Defensive Player of the Year this year. Not necessarily that he needs to win it, but he should have been one of those 3 guys.
Ashley, what do you think? I kind of have some thoughts too, but you go first.
Yeah, I was kind of, as Mary Kay was talking, at first I'm like, oh, well, I'm not really that surprised because of how the Browns season went this year. But when you do look at Myles's individual numbers, they are impressive. And a lot of those stats are right up there with a guy like Nick Bosa and a guy like Micah Parsons. So yeah, Chris Jones, I think, is definitely the one who kind of feels like, it could have been Myles. And I'm reading NFL.com's write-up of the awards, and they cited Max Crosby from the Raiders as a potential snub, and he had a career high 12 and a half sacks, and it's well, Myles had 16. So how are we using this to what's the criteria here that we're using, and how much of it, my question is, just kind of deals with the Browns all around season, this underwhelming season, this defense that struggled, Myles flipping his car and missing a game, and that kind of being a huge narrative. Obviously, all of the attention Deshaun Watson brought, the negative attention he brought to this organization. So I do wonder how much those factors, whether consciously or subconsciously, maybe impacted something like this. I think it's a fair question to ask.
Yeah, so I agree that I certainly think Myles deserves to be in the discussion, but I think he's sort of penalized because of the performance of the team, right? It was a bad defense, and the team was bad, and he didn't play a lot of marquee games. He had some stuff kind of in the background with the car and getting benched and all of that. But also, I'll be honest, I guess I'm going to take the defend Chris Jones stance here. I'm having trouble figuring out which one of these 3 guys I would take off. Myles Garrett could certainly be in the top 3, and I wouldn't be like, whoa, well, that's not right. I think he could certainly be on this list, but at the same time, I guess I have trouble looking at this and saying, Myles is way better than this guy. I think Chris Jones has sort of become the dominant defensive tackle in football right now. And if they win on Sunday, it might be because of Chris Jones in part. So I don't know. I think Myles Garrett does get overlooked too much, though, in the discussion for just dominant edge rushers. I think too often I don't hear his name mentioned with people. I don't hear his name mentioned with TJ Watt and Max Crosby and the Bosas and whoever else you want to throw out there. I do feel, Mary Kay, like Myles becomes the forgotten man sometimes. And so while I'm not going to sit here and pound the table and say Myles Garrett needs to be in this top 3, I also, if somebody said to me, no, Myles Garrett should be number 2, I'd listen to that argument too, because I do think he's that good.
Yeah, you're right. These guys are all deserving as well. But for the second straight year, for him to finish with 16 sacks and to get no votes last year whatsoever, and, for him to be kind of left off this list, I think, like I said, to be the most double teamed and yet pass rush win rate leader at the same time, I think that has to count for something. And when you look at the fact that he didn't have any help from any